in the book of Jubilees, continuing in our read and study through this book. Just wanted to make sure I confirmed with you guys. Last week I was pretty confident. I knew what the A.M. meant in the book of Jubilees, and it does mean after man. So after man was created. And so when you see those numbers, we're talking about time from Adam. And so this is really good when you're reading the book of Jubilees, because you're getting a timetable that we have never heard before. They're literally giving you, when we read the book of Jubilees about certain events taking place, it's letting you get a understanding of the time from the creation to that particular point, so we can really understand history, the real time of history. And so this is amazing stuff. And it's going to be very important as we continue reading through the end of chapter 4 before we get into chapter 5. Now, in chapter 4, I know last week Cain killed Abel. We talked about that. We talked about how, Abel offered a sacrifice. He was Cain just gave an offering. God accepted the sacrifice of Cain. God accepted the sacrifice of Abel, but rejected Cain's sacrifice, because it was the sacrifice and the blood sacrifice that God was needful and accepting of, because without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sins. And see, when you come to the Lord, you want to be mindful of your sin, and that you take care of your sin. I mean, even when we take communion, think about this. We got to examine ourselves so that we don't come and take communion unworthily, because many people are in sickness, or they can even die because of coming to the Lord's table without being worthy. So this is important. God was about that blood sacrifice to atone for the sins of man. What was the first thing that God did for Adam and Eve when they sinned? He clothed them in animal skin. In other words, some animals had to die for them to be covered from their shame. Y'all see the symbolism. And they tried to cover themselves with fig leaves, but that wasn't good enough. That's the equivalent of an offering. That was the fruit of the ground, right? Trying to cover themselves. No, it takes blood to cover man. It's guilt. So we in chapter 4 and 5. We're gonna be towards the end of the chapter. We never got to Adam dying last week, did we? We didn't get that far, did we? That's what I thought. So we're gonna get into Jubilees chapter 4. I'll start from verse 4 and go from there. And the Lord reproved Cain because of Abel, because he had slain him, and he made him a fugitive on the earth because of the blood of his brother, and he cursed him upon the earth. And we recall that because Cain's sacrifice was not accepted by God, he got angry because his brother's sacrifice was accepted by God, and he killed his brother Abel. Verse 5 says, and on this account it is written on the heavenly tables, cursed is he who smites his neighbor treacherously. And let all who have seen and heard say, so be it. And the man who has seen and not declared it, let him be accursed as the other. Y'all remember these verses, right? And for this reason, we announce when we come before the Lord, the angels. That's right. And for this reason, we, that is the angels, and who are they talking to? Not Cain. Who are these angels talking with? Anybody remember? No, not Enoch. I'll give you a clue. His name ends with an S. You thought I was going to give you the beginning letter. Moses. All right. Let me take you back to the first chapter right quick. Let's go to the first chapter right quick. All right. At verse 1, chapter 1. And it came to pass in the first year of the exodus of the children of Israel out of Egypt, in the 3rd month, on the 16th day of the month, that God spake to Moses, saying, come up to me on the mount. So, and I will give thee 2 tables of stone of the law and of the commandment which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses went up into the mount of God, and the glory of the Lord abode on Mount Sinai, and the cloud overshadowed it 6 days. And he called Moses on the 7th day out of the midst of the cloud, and the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a flaming fire on the top of the mount. And Moses was on him the earlier and the later history and of the testimony. And he said, incline thine heart to every word which I shall speak to thee on this mount, and write them in a book, in order that their generations may see how I have not forsaken them for all the evil which they have wrought in transgressing the covenant which I established between me and thee for their generations this day on Mount Sinai. Now, did y'all catch that? God just told Moses before he made the covenant, write everything down so that his people will know what was the reason. Who doesn't have a KJV app on your phone? Who does? It'll probably tell similar. It's hard to keep up because go to chapter 1 on yours. I know the verses are not the same. There's a couple of different translations of Jubilee, so you're probably reading a different translation. A different translator translated the text into English, but it should be more or less the same information. You can also go on a Google site. This is probably the most common translation, but there are several. Or maybe you might have the most common. That's an assumption on my part. I haven't studied enough to make that declaration, to see all the different translations of Jubilees. All right. And so I want you to look in verse, since you got it, Joshua, I want you to look in verse chapter 1. That's right. Verse 6 is the key in this version. What does your verse 6 say? Let me see where. Before you read, Joshua, Tyler, tell me what your verse 6 says in Jubilees chapter 1. And don't forget to turn the mic on.
It's crazy because I was using a different app last time, because even on this app I just opened up, the numbers are even on a different side. So hopefully this is better than the other one.
Okay.
I was using. But my verse says, thus it will come to pass when all these things come upon them, that they will recognize that I am more righteous than they in all their judgments and all their actions, and they will recognize that I have been truly with them.
You see that? So I'm gonna read 5 and 6 together. Now you on point with my translation. Okay. So that translation you got there is right in sync with this one. So it looks like it might be the same one. So now I'm taking you back because I want you to understand and don't forget why information. Why did God give Moses all of this information that we are reading up on? Because what we are reading up on are the angels giving Moses by God's instruction, all this information for a purpose. And what is the purpose? It's in 5 and 6. I'm going to read 5 and 6 together. And he said, incline thine heart to every word which I shall speak to thee on this mount, in order that their generations may see. Who are their generations?
People.
The people's children and their children and their children. All right, their descendants is what he's talking about. He wants the descendants of the people that he's going to directly make a covenant with to know something and learn something on account of what he's about to tell Moses. All right. And he says, and write them in a book in order that their generations may see what? How I have not forsaken them for the evil which they have wrought in transgressing the covenant. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a parallel with Romans 11. Remember, Paul asked the Gentiles, has God forsaken his people? And he tells them, no, God has not. Why? Because he knew this account. Mm-hmm. He knew what God wrote or told, or he had access and studied, no doubt, the book of Jubilees. The Gentiles had not, because what? This is a covenant between God and Israel. It's not a covenant between God and the rest of the nations. He chose the children of Israel out to make this covenant. And so we see right here that God will not forsake Israel on account of their transgression of the covenant. He always intended to show Israel. Let's look at verse 5 and 6 again together. Let me continue reading. That he's not forsaken them for all the evil which they have wrought in transgressing the covenant, which he establishes between himself and thee for their generations this day on Mount Sinai. So when Moses came down with the law, that was the written covenant that was the established on stone, God and his people, with Moses being the intermediary. All right. And God already knew they were going to transgress the covenant. Let Moses know, I'm not going to forsake them on account of it. My goodness. Verse 6 says, and thus it will come to pass, like eventually it will come to pass when all these things come upon them. What's the things that's going to come upon them? The curses of the law for transgressing. And so God had always purposed, this is powerful. God had always purposed for the curses of the law to be a means of bringing about revelation to the children of Israel about how great God is. And when we look at this directly applies to us. Here we are, generations and generations, many years down the line, and our people are waking up in the flesh to realize that they are the children of Israel. And guess how they're figuring it out? Because they see the curses that have been on us, and they start to read more and see that God is still going to provide a way for us to overcome if we come back to him. He never forgot us. He never forsook us, even though slaves of all nations and been oppressed by all the nations. Even now, look at what's happening in the United States. Illegal immigrants are coming in, and guess where they put them at? In our neighborhoods. They take our resources and they're giving it to them. We are still in the fulfillment of these curses as a nation of people. And so God is letting Moses know that when all of these things are completely fulfilled in us, look at verse 6. And thus it will come to pass when all these things come upon them that they will recognize. See, right now, many of us do not recognize that God is more righteous than us in all our judgments and in all of our actions, and that he has been truly with them. See, a lot of us think that God forsook us. Because why would we go through all of this hardship and suffering and slavery? And the God of the Bible can't be our God because look at how we've been oppressed. But the Bible reveals to us that one day we're going to figure it out and understand and recognize that he has truly been with us, or the children of Israel will realize this. Listen to this. And do thou write for thyself all these words which I declare unto thee this day, for I know their rebellion and their stiff neck. Look what he's saying. Before I bring them into the land which I swear to their fathers, to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob, saying, unto your seed will I give a land flowing with milk and honey. All right. Now, let me fast forward a little bit. Let me fast forward. Let me see. Now go down to verse 26 in the same chapter. And let's see how the angels get brought into the picture. Verse 26. And he said to the angel of the presence of creation, till my sanctuary has been built among them for all eternity. And the Lord will appear to the eyes of all, and all shall know that I am the God of Israel and the Father of all the children of Jacob. Oh my goodness. And king on Mount Zion for all eternity. And Zion and Jerusalem shall be holy. Did y'all hear that? So God tells, write for Moses. So the angel of the presence is going to write some things down from Moses, and it's going to contain the history from the beginning of creation until the sanctuary. So he's telling the time. How did we get to the point of the sanctuary being built? He's going to tell them that history all the way up until that point. All right, well, let me see. Verse 26. And the Lord will appear to the eyes of all, and all shall know that I am the God of Israel and the Father of all the children of Jacob. Look at this. God actually finds it important. Listen, that the nations and everyone on the earth know that he is our God and our Father. I'm talking about the sons of Jacob, the children of Israel. Because the people that are calling themselves that are not. They are imposters, the ones that are calling themselves that today and are ruling the nations. They look at us and they look at us like we are the lowest of the low. And God says, no, they're going to figure out, and everyone is going to recognize that I am your God. They've done everything they could to hide that. They've even confiscated the image of God's people and made him in the features of a nation that is a Gentile nation.